He swerved across 4 lanes doing 80, cut me off by inches, and slammed his brakes just to watch me flinch. I rolled down my window ready to scream every word I knew. Instead, I smiled at him, and that smile did more damage than any words ever could have. If you've ever wanted to make someone's ugly behavior blow up in their own face without saying a single cruel word, you're going to love this one. Hit subscribe, get comfortable, and let's get into it, because this is the story of the day I stopped losing fights I never needed to have. My name doesn't matter for this story, so just call me Dana. I drive for a living, not rideshare, just a long commute, 40 minutes each way, 5 days a week, through some of the ugliest traffic our city has to offer. And if you've ever done a commute like that, you already know the road turns people into their worst selves. For years, I was one of those people too. Someone would merge without signaling, and I'd lay on the horn like it was going to teach them a lesson. Someone would ride my bumper and I'd brake check them out of pure spite. I told myself I was standing up for myself. Really, I was just carrying stress from work, stress from home, stress from everywhere, and dumping it onto strangers in 2-ton metal boxes doing 60 miles an hour. It never once made me feel better. Every confrontation left this ugly residue, a tightness in my chest, hands still shaking 10 minutes later. My whole nervous system lit up like I just escaped a fight instead of merely survived a merge. I didn't know it yet, but all of that resentment was building toward one specific afternoon with one specific man in a beat-up gray pickup truck. I never learned his name. I don't need to. I know his type. I'd bet money he was the loudest voice in every room he walked into. The guy who mistakes aggression for confidence and cruelty for humor. You've met him. Maybe you've dated him. Maybe you've worked for him. That day, I was in the middle lane of a 3-lane highway, doing the speed limit, minding my business, half listening to a podcast. Out of nowhere, his truck came screaming up from behind, no signal, no warning, and cut directly across my lane, and the one beside it to catch an exit he'd clearly forgotten about until the last possible second. My tires screeched. My heart slammed into my throat. For a full second, I thought I was about to total my car and possibly worse. He didn't even glance in his mirror. Here's the thing about a moment like that. It doesn't end when the danger passes. It just relocates. It moves from your body into your chest, and it sits there, hot and heavy, demanding somewhere to go. Old me would have chased him down. Old me would have pulled up next to that truck, laid on the horn, and mouthed something I'd probably regret. Old me had done exactly that, more times than I'm proud of. And it had never once ended with me feeling like I'd won anything. It just ended with 2 furious strangers, both convinced the other one was the villain. Neither one actually safer for it, but something in me had been changing. Slowly, quietly, I'd started noticing how much of my day these strangers were renting space in my head for 20 seconds of someone else's carelessness, and I'd carried the anger for the next 20 minutes. Sometimes the whole rest of the drive. I was doing the emotional labor of being furious on behalf of someone who would forget my face the second his light turned green. I didn't want to give him that power anymore. But in that instant, tires still humming with adrenaline, I wasn't thinking about philosophy. I was just angry, bone deep, hands gripping the wheel, angry. Traffic slowed near the exit ramp, and there he was again. Same gray truck. 2 lanes over, waiting at the light like nothing had happened. I had a choice to make. I pulled up beside him. He must have felt it, because he turned his head and looked right at me. And I watched his face range itself into that preloaded smirk. The one that says, go ahead, say something, I dare you. He was ready. He wanted the fight. You could see it in the way his jaw was already set. The way his hand was halfway to the window switch, primed to roll it down and unload on me first if I hesitated even a second. He'd done this before. He'd want me to blow up so he could feel justified being the villain. That's the trick of people like him. They need your anger to make sense of their own. I felt the old script rising in my throat. The horn honk, the mouth, the words. The middle finger I'd flash and instantly feel worse for flashing Dodd. And then, for the first time, I didn't reach for it. I let my face go hard for just a second. Let him see the flash of ya. I saw what you did. And then, right as his window started to roll down, right as he opened his mouth to fire the first shot, I smiled. Not a smirk, not sarcasm, a genuine, warm, slightly embarrassed for him smile. I gave him a little O of recognition, tilted my head, and mouthed, "Okay, that makes sense. Sorry about that." Like I just remembered he had somewhere urgent to be. Like his recklessness was the most understandable thing in the world. I even threw in a small wave, the kind you give a neighbor. His mouth was still open. No sound came out. I watched something short-circuit behind his eyes. He'd built an entire script for this interaction. The yelling, the outrage, the satisfying validation of being the aggrieved party in his own little story where honking his horn made him the victim. He had every line rehearsed, and I hadn't given him a single cue to say any of them. The light turned green. I eased forward at a totally normal, totally unbothered pace, still smiling faintly like I was thinking about something pleasant. In my mirror, I watched him sit there a beat too long. Car behind him actually honked at him this time. Before he lurched forward, expression twisted somewhere between confused and cheated. He'd wanted a war. I'd handed him a completely different movie, and he didn't know what role he was supposed to play in it. And here's the part that surprised me most. I felt fine, better than fine. There was no adrenaline crash, no residual shake in my hands, no replaying the moment for the next 10 miles imagining better comebacks. The whole ugly transaction that used to cost me 20 minutes apiece was over in 4 seconds, and I got to keep the rest of my day. He, on the other hand, got to keep whatever that was. The confusion, the fizzled out anger with nowhere to land. I didn't take anything from him by yelling. I took something far more valuable by refusing to give him what he came for. I've done it a dozen times since. Every time, it works the same way. The flash of confusion, the aborted confrontation, the small, quiet satisfaction of walking away lighter than I arrived. It's not really about winning against a stranger who nearly ran me off the road. It's about not handing my afternoon over to someone who wasn't even going to remember my face. Funny thing about anger, it convinces you that the only way to be heard is to be loud. But sometimes the loudest thing you can do to someone who's spoiling for a fight is to simply not show up for it. If this story made you smile, smash that like button and tell me in the comments. Have you ever disarmed someone just by refusing to give them the reaction they wanted? I want to hear it. And if you want more stories like this one, hit subscribe, because there's a lot more where that came from.